Chapter 3, Molecules, Compounds, and Chemical Equations. How many different substances exist? Any idea? Pure substances. Not a lot. 200,000 is probably closer. When we think about, there are 91 naturally occurring elements, and you can combine those not in every possible combination, but in lots of the possible combinations. And not just, oh, well, this is the compound between carbon and oxygen. There's actually multiple compounds between carbon and oxygen. The number of compounds is basically limitless. Nobody can count. There's no comprehensive list. So there's no answer to that question. The ability of elements to combine with each other and form compounds gives us this huge amount of diversity in the types of substances. Let's look at two compounds that form between hydrogen and oxygen. Well, I take that back. Let's look at hydrogen and oxygen and what happens when they form a compound. I didn't look at the slides before I came in here. So hydrogen, I think we're somewhat familiar with. Hydrogen is a gas at room temperature. Is hydrogen flammable? Yes. Have you heard of the Hindenburg? A big blimp filled with hydrogen. They flew it across the Atlantic, and just as they were about to land, kaboom, the whole thing exploded. So not a great idea to fill a blimp with hydrogen gas. How about oxygen? Well, oxygen is also a gas at room temperature. Is oxygen flammable? Yeah. In fact, you have to have oxygen for there to be any combustion at all. But we take these two elements and combine them together, and we can make water. Water is a liquid at room temperature. It doesn't become a gas until 100 degrees Celsius. Look at the difference in these boiling points. Minus 253, minus 183, plus 100. That's a huge difference in boiling point by combining the hydrogen and oxygen together. Is water flammable? No. In fact, that's what we typically use to put out fires. By combining these two elements into a compound, we dramatically change their chemical and physical properties. An entirely new substance has formed. If you have a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen, you can have any proportion. You could have a little bit of hydrogen with a lot of oxygen, or the reverse, or you could have a 50-50 mixture. But water is a compound, and in a compound you have definite proportions. We talked about that in Chapter 2. Every water molecule has 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. It's a definite proportion of hydrogen to oxygen. So compounds are different than mixtures. A mixture of hydrogen and oxygen is very flammable. We used to do a demo in a chemistry club I was in college, and we had a hydrogen balloon and an oxygen balloon, and then we had a balloon with hydrogen and oxygen mixed together. So you take a candle on the end of a stick, because you don't want to get too close to this, and you light the hydrogen balloon, and it goes boom. And then you light the oxygen balloon, and it goes boom. And then you light the hydrogen-oxygen boom. Hydrogen-oxygen balloon. And this was in a really big lecture hall. They made it a little too big. All the ceiling tiles in the huge lecture hall went whoop and came back down. No one was hurt, but it was really, really loud, and people came running down the hall and looking in the lecture hall, is everybody okay in there? You combine them, and they become more explosive, but it's a mixture. When you form a compound between hydrogen and oxygen, it makes water not explosive at all. So this is the sort of balloon that'll lift the roof, hydrogen and oxygen together. You can have any ratio. Water, being a compound, always the same ratio, 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen.